perhaps the most influential AI company on the face of the earth was thrown into chaos starting on Friday when founder Sam Altman was pushed out of the company. We're going to get into the whole timeline that transpired over the weekend, but let's just start with the news. After being fired on Friday, Sam Altman, we can put this first element up on the screen here. He said, "I loved my time at OpenAI. It was transformative for me personally and hopefully the world a little bit. Most of all, I loved working with such talented people. We'll have more to say about what's next later." Well, actually, we know what's next. After a wild weekend where he's pushed out, he's flirting actually with coming back. There's news reports that he's coming back. He's posting pictures that suggest maybe he's coming back. It turns out he's actually landed at Microsoft. We can put the next element up on the screen. He has been hired by Microsoft already. So this is just between Friday and Monday. He was hired at Microsoft. And if we put the next tear sheet up on the screen, it followed just the wildest weekend. I was telling Krystal before we started filming this, it was like an episode of Succession. The New York Times has a dive into it that they bill as, in the headline, "The fear and tension that led to Sam Altman's ouster at OpenAI." It looked, from reports, especially originally, because of where the fault lines are. Now, OpenAI has a really interesting structure. This is from the New York Times on Saturday. They said the conflict between fast growth and AI safety came into focus on Friday afternoon when Mr. Altman was pushed out of his job by 4 of OpenAI's 6 board members. One of the chairman of the board actually wasn't on this meeting when they ousted Sam Altman. A couple big members of the team, their chief technology officer, quit after Altman was pushed out by the board. He was asked to join this board meeting over video at noon in San Francisco. They're reading from a script, according to the New York Times.
The remote breakup. That's a rough one.
The remote breakup. And, again, this is one of the most interesting parts of it, is that they have this nonprofit board. Obviously, OpenAI started as a nonprofit. Altman was one of the people who actually pushed. He was really the person who pushed to start funneling all of this corporate money into OpenAI. So they're governed by a nonprofit board. I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal now. Only a minority of its members were allowed to have a financial stake in the company at any given time, according to the company's bylaws. Altman himself had no equity in the company, further diminishing his influence with the board. This setup, as the journal continues, allowed the board to essentially oust Altman without the consent of some of OpenAI's largest investors, and even though he delivered rapid financial success for the company and sent its valuation soaring, because the members of the nonprofit board don't exactly have the same, financial motives or interest in the financial motives that somebody like Sam Altman would, after steering all of this Microsoft cash and other corporate cash into OpenAI. And now, obviously, Altman is going to Microsoft to work on AI. That's part of this deal. He's the head of their AI operations now, which means presumably he's going to be, I would imagine he's still going to have, because of the stake that Microsoft has in OpenAI, Altman still apparently has very good will with people on the for-profit side of OpenAI. That's why this was really shocking to the AI community. He's ousted by this split, Krystal. I'm really curious to see what you think about this fundamental split in the AI world between people who say we need to reel this in, begging for regulation, people like Tristan Harris at the Center for Humane Tech, which worked with the Biden administration on the recent executive orders. So people who are just saying we need to reel this back in, this technology it's a Pandora's box. It's open and we need to kind of pull it back in as quickly as we can. And the sort of Mark Andreessen camp that is, full techno-optimist, and we need to, be actually on the accelerator right now because there's so much good that can come from this. And the more sort of profit motive and capitalist drive is involved in the process, the better it's all going to be. Altman is more on the techno-optimist side of this. He's actually been pushed out by some of these same foundational dynamics that he tried to navigate and actually accommodated when he was in charge of OpenAI.
So the history of OpenAI is it originally is established, Altman, actually Elon Musk was involved at that time, and a number of other people established OpenAI as an explicitly nonprofit organization to try to pursue tech, including obviously AI, under a nonprofit umbrella so that all the decision making wasn't driven by just the profit motive. So that was the original idea.
Which is a good idea, by the way.
Which is a really good idea and something that I fully support, because I do think that there are reasons to be concerned about what AI could unintentionally unleash, especially if you have, big business controlling the decision making and driving the direction of development. Not only are you not going to pursue some of the things that actually could be really good for humanity because those things don't turn a profit, but you also run the risk of unleashing things that are really not ready to be unleashed and have inherent risk. We got a little bit of a glimpse of this when ChatGPT was rolled out. And remember there was that brief period before they sort of like lobotomized ChatGPT where people were having some really wild, some real wild stuff was going on over there. And part of why, AI is different than other tech is, I saw someone explain that, it may have even been Sam Altman that explained this, but I'm not sure. But, like a phone, I don't know how a phone works, but I know there are people who could tell me how it works, right? Who could explain like this piece and this fits with this and this is how, there's a functionality that human beings understand. With large language models, it's not like that. You feed in all of this insane astronomical amounts of data and you create something that is different, that you can't there is no human being on the planet who could tell you, if you ask the ChatGPT this question or the AI this question, because of how it's programmed, you're going to get this result. That's what makes it such a, that's what makes it so different. Right. That's what makes it so, frankly, scary. That's what makes it something that you should approach with some caution and care and not just leave up to the whims of markets and people who want to turn a huge profit on it. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of the overall state of affairs. And my eyebrows were firmly raised when OpenAI shifted to making this big business deal with Microsoft. I had a lot of questions about the direction that would go in. Sam was very out front, being like, no, it's fine. I totally trust them. It's going to be all good. The other cultural divide or philosophical divide in Silicon Valley too is between the effective altruists that we've covered in the context of Sam Bankman-Fried, who have this philosophy that is the best, we need to calculate the best, greatest good that our dollars can be put towards. We should do everything we can to get wealthy and then use that money in these directed ways towards the things that we find to be the greatest threat to humanity and civilization, and put your feelings aside about whatever cause emotionally moves you. And we'll just do this complex calculus. I have all sorts of issues with that. I did a monologue on it. You can listen to it. But one of the things that they identified as one of the grave risks that a lot of money should be funneled into is the threat from AI gone wild, I guess you would say. Another one was pandemic preparedness. That's why Sam Bankman-Fried's thing was always cloaked in, oh, sure, it's not about me getting the regulation or the non-regulation I want of crypto. It's really about pandemic preparedness. Anyway, AI development was the other big cause, or one of the other big causes that they're devoting to. There's a lot of Silicon Valley and tech types who do believe in the effective altruist system. And so that is part of the split here and the tension as well between the direction Sam was going in and the direction that the board wanted to go in.
And that's, again, interesting about this. There are experts, there are people, reporters who cover this really closely who say it's not necessarily, we don't know definitively that the reason he was originally pushed out was because people were like, whoa, Sam Altman, the nonprofit board was like, we just got to pump the brakes on all of this. So much as it could have been that, or it could have been that these tensions stem from that fundamental disconnect between Altman and the nonprofit board. And in other sort of then logistical downstream ways, he ended up sort of on their chopping board. So if it's tensions that come from that initial disagreement, or it was front and center, the initial disagreement itself, I'm sure we'll learn more and more about in the days to come. But this conversation about AI, I find so incredibly frustrating because the techno-optimist side of this will point to all of these silly pessimists. I love retweeting that pessimist Twitter page that were worried about the internet, that were worried about cell phones, that were worried about whatever else it was, that were worried about cars. They liked their horses, all of that. First of all, as a way to dismiss pessimists now, those pessimists made the eventual product safer and better. So denigrating the pessimists is not helping the product. Second of all, Yes, the call for regulations that sometimes is the Baptists and bootleggers, it is the protectionists, it is crony capitalism, and it is driven sometimes by apocalyptic fears. But actually those apocalyptic fears are held by people who are not just tech outsiders who don't understand the tech like we necessarily, like we can't tell you how the phone works. They're actually, as you mentioned, people who do understand how this tech works, have developed the tech, are also in the camp of the pessimists. Not all of them, but many of them are. So to then act as though people who don't understand the tech are only afraid because they're ignorant is, again, stupid.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And this conversation was just once again thrust to the forefront with the ouster of Altman over the weekend. So now he's the head of Microsoft, which has tons and tons of money. Putting tons and tons of money into AI is massively powerful. Krystal, I don't think we got any step closer to safer AI over the weekend.
No, I don't think so. And there's two separate genres of AI concern. One of them is the apocalyptic scenario, like the AI is going to kill us all, and or unleash something that is unpredictable, et cetera. There's that one. Even if you don't buy into that one, the other one though is that you have massive job loss triggered by rapid AI development, which is something that corporate titans they're all for. So that's part of why people are concerned by this being controlled by the for-profit sector of society. And as you say, Emily, not just people who are outside of it and don't understand, but actually people who are intimately knowledgeable and involved with the development of AI. But I would also just say that sometimes people who have a little bit of a remove, who aren't emotionally invested in the development of X or Y or Z, but have almost a layman's perspective on what this could mean and what it could unleash. Yeah. Those views are also really valuable because at times people get so into the weeds and so in love with the technology itself that they have an incentive to downplay the risks and downplay some of the consequences. So personally, I wouldn't dismiss people who are sounding alarms who don't have intimate familiarity with exactly what the tech is or what it does. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.